The zone, the bottom line. Needless to say, it is the I Want to Know segment. Try to find as many different walks of life because people do have questions. We've had a caddy on so far. The man who breaks down and builds back up, Philip Serena, when you talk about changing it from a hockey venue to a basketball venue and vice versa.
Gentleman from Louisville Slugger who talked about how many bats you get from a tree, where do they get their wood from, things that we just wanted to know about Major League bats versus less than Major League bats.
And today we're going to get the ins and outs of being a flight attendant.
And we're going to get to that right now. Just want to tell you, be listening in a few minutes. We're going to tell you about a couple of special guests, a few special guests, I believe, by number, that are going to be in studio with us tomorrow.
But right now, we can use her last name.
Okay.
She gave us the green light. Sue Boyce, flight attendant for 29 years. Now, we're not going to mention the airline, but Sue does join us on the Nextel Zone phone. It is the I Want to Know segment. Hi, Sue.
How are you?
Good, Sue. How are you?
I'm enjoying your show.
Well, we appreciate that very much.
So ask me away.
All right. Now, first and foremost, have you ever caught anybody in the bathroom joining the Mile High Club?
Many a time. Many a time.
And what happens?
Especially on the night coaches back from the West Coast.
Right. People just think, hey, you know what? Nobody will notice. The plane is half
it's
empty.
That Mile High Club thing. I don't know why, because those are the smallest lavatories in the world.
Now, what is the protocol? What are you supposed to do if you come upon that situation?
Well,
no
personally,
pun
I
intended.
just ignore it. You know, I figure if they've got to have a private moment, let them go.
Yeah, exactly.
What
What's the sense?
What are you supposed to do?
Actually, there is no protocol.
Oh, there isn't?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Now, what about this infamous, can I get 5 or 6 blankets back here? That's also a sign, is it not?
Generally so, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes 10. The blankets can be small.
Now, have you ever had the chance to join the Mile High Club? Anybody come after you at all?
Absolutely not, no.
No, never, huh?
No, not at all. I have no desire to do something like that in the bathroom.
It's not necessarily a reflection of you, but sometimes, you know, guys are on planes and they're throwing back a few drinks and...
Yeah, I've seen that a few times.
Yeah, anybody make the offer at least?
No.
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 Interesting.
I'm a very good professional.
Now, what about this whole smoking thing? I don't know when it turned around where you were not allowed to smoke on flights in the United States, but...
I'm not sure what year it was, but it was a great thing.
Because airplanes stink for the most part when
well,
they
they do, and the
flights.
ventilation, you know, it's not good enough. You can't open a window. Let's put it that way.
In the very beginning, no, it actually wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah, not a good idea at all.
I saw Goldfinger. I know what happens.
Yeah, I saw Airport,
yes.
I believe 75.
Yeah.
Let me know that. Now, when that first came about, this no smoking, were you a little more lenient than perhaps they are today?
Not really,
No.
because you know, the reason why it came about, aside from the health hazard, it's a big safety hazard,
Mm-hmm.
and there's too many flammable things. When you think about it, how ridiculous to have a lit cigarette on an airplane full of oxygen.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
No, we were all pleased when that changed.
Now, you also, 29 years as a flight attendant, you actually saw the heyday of drinking and smoking on planes.
Yeah.
They've gotten more limited in their fun time.
Absolutely. When I was hired, I was a stewardess, and I retired as a flight attendant.
Yeah.
I saw lots of changes with the service, the passengers, the routes, just everything was so different back in the 70s. My favorite flight was bringing the Vietnam vets back home. We'd have full 747s filled with Vietnam veterans getting released. They wanted to know about what kind of music we were listening to. They were my age. And, you know, why are your skirts so short and blah, blah, blah. It was just kind of exciting. It's part of history. Then we've had some funny things happen, too. So my favorite one was the lady that got lodged in the lavatory. She was a little rotund. And you know how those lavatories work, the suction. Well, she couldn't get out of there.
She got her ass stuck in the...
I'll let you say that, yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to land that way, and they actually had to physically take apart the lavatory, which, of course, she was mortified.
Oh, my God.
We found a little humor in it.
And what do? Do you give her a lifetime pass or something just to kind of make up for that, or a free round trip someplace?
We gave her Weight Watchers.
Oh,
Yeah,
very good.
exactly.
I guess
Stop eating.
I guess it's not your fault.
No, it isn't. You know how they a lot of suction there, let me put it that way.
And what about food? People have really taken their shots over the years at airline food. Now, what do people really expect?
Well, you know, when I started flying, we used to go down the aisle with a roast and carve it and serve lobster and shrimp, and it used to be really a neat thing to go down on an airplane and eat a decent meal.
Wait a minute. Are you pulling our leg?
No, I wouldn't do that.
You had roast?
Oh,
You
yeah,
had surf and turf on the plane?
we'd carve it right in the aisle. It was a big deal. It was a royal service, we called it.
Now, when did it
And it
actually?
was fun to do. I mean, we served ice cream sundaes and everything.
When did it go back to what I know today, or when did it the 2 cherry plum tomatoes that are cut in half on 4 shreds of lettuce?
I think it's a cost effectiveness.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's definitely. And I think people, the traveling public's a lot different. They're just trying to get from point A to point B, and I think they're realizing they don't really want to pay extra for an exquisite meal because that's hard to mass produce.
It is
And most of the airports have, the shopping mall,
Food court, right.
yeah. So that works out fine.
I was going to say, it is the trick of the trade. Sue Boyce is with us, a longtime flight attendant. 29 years she worked, and it is the I Want to Know segment here on 790 The Zone.
You mentioned the short skirts. They've obviously gotten away from that. What was the
Well, that was in the 70s.
right? What was the mindset about getting away from that shorter skirt?
Well, I think it just became less of a glamorous type thing. You didn't, they hire all kinds of people, which I like. You didn't have to be beautiful or anything, and they got away from that. Remember, was it PSA out in California? They wore the mini skirts with the go-go boots. You probably don't remember. You're not old enough. But
Sounds cool, though, to me.
it was wild.
Yeah.
But, it's a
Very randy.
It's pretty crazy.
We're talking with Sue Boyce, and we'll continue our conversation. It is the I Want to Know segment. 29 years she was a flight attendant / stewardess, as she said, when she first started.
Now, I know she's telling us the truth on 99% of what she's saying. I can't believe she was never hit on by some drunk bastard.
Well, I find that impossible. 5:14 here on 790 The Zone. The I Want to Know segment does continue as Sue Boyce rejoins us, flight attendant for 29 years.
Sue, Nick and I were on a flight pretty recently where it was the pilot's last flight. They told us about the tradition. There'll be fire
yeah.
trucks and everything else. Let me tell you what the problem was. He had been flying for 30 years. He decides it's that day to come tell us. Never had an accident, never even close. What the hell is he doing trying to ruin 30 years of that on our flight?
He's proud, and he should be.
Yeah, tell me about it after we land, sir, not before we take
Yeah,
off.
once we walk off the plane, and we thank you for a job
Right.
well done.
Yeah, they really make a big deal of that last flight. They really do. It's cute. They used to. I guess they still do foam the runway.
Yep.
Did they do that?
Yeah, and he told us they were going to be doing that when he got back to Atlanta.
It's a hard job to give up because it's such a different way of life. I mean, you know people in all parts of the country, the world. You wait on people that are in the public eye, and it was just fun. It really was. I highly recommend it.
Well, let's get to a couple of things. You mentioned waiting on people in the public eye.
Yeah.
Encounters, brushes, good guys, bad guys.
Oh, yeah. My favorite, I wish I'd written them down. I never thought I'd fly this long. But my favorite person in the news or whatever in the limelight was James Garner. The most delightful man, and it was when Rockford Files was the big show. But I told him he'd always be Maverick to me. He was just down to earth. And then you get the ones that act totally different than you hope they will. I won't name those. Have a lot of athletes.
No, you have to name those.
Give us just one name.
Well, I was real disappointed in Rodney Dangerfield. He was...
Drinking?
No, he didn't drink. As a matter of fact, he's a vegetarian. He brought all his own food. He was just cold. And I look at Caddyshack, and it's the different, but that's all right. They have their own lives.
Yeah, he strikes me as the type of guy, once you take the script away,
Yeah, exactly.
there goes the personality
Exactly.
right out the window.
But people like Hank Aaron, Dale Murphy, Lynn Swan, I had him once a week for a month on my flight. We were on a first-name basis. Adorable. Of course, I had Dolly Parton in the early days when, she had trouble getting her tray table down in first class. It couldn't stay down. That was
bless
pretty
her.
embarrassing.
Well,
But she made jokes about it. And,
Why not?
yeah, really.
Take her right to the bank as you
Now,
went to
Miss
a show.
Lillian Carter, what a gal. Jimmy Carter's mother.
Mhm.
I took her to L.A., and it was 10 o'clock flight. And so we were about 11 o'clock in the morning. I asked her if she'd like anything to drink, and she looked at her watch, and she said, well, it might be the right time someplace. I'll have a double Jack Daniels on the rock.
Well, good for her.
And she spent the entire flight in the back saying hello to everybody. She was adorable. She was going to do the Johnny Carson show.
Apparently drunk by that point, too.
No, she was like everybody's grandmother.
Yeah, old ladies don't get drunk.
Nah.
It's just kind of cute.
Foster Brooks, do you remember him?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, we let him
Speaking
do
of
the
drunks.
Yeah, he made a living out of acting like he's drunk.
Right.
So we asked him if he would do the PA. He loved it.
Now, let me ask you this. We talked about, not as much drinking and really no smoking going on in planes. the way it was told to me, pilots basically had their own bar in the cockpit back years ago. I mean, that's
Not
That's
with
not
the
true, is
airline
it?
I worked for. I don't know about other airlines, but the airline I worked for, no. They could never get away with something like that.
We're talking with Sue Boyce. She's a flight attendant. She was a flight attendant for 29 years. And
Glorious year.
back in the day, Sue, did they kind of monitor your weight? Because I understand
Oh,
that
yeah.
was also one of the rules.
You had to weigh in once a month. And
Right.
if you were a pound over, you were, warned, and then you had to, lose the weight. Of course, we'd all take off our jewelry. Obviously, they don't monitor the weight anymore. But it used to be fun. You go in there and take off your rings, anything you could to make you a little bit lighter if you were that close. I never had that problem. I was fortunate, but I know a lot of girls really battled it for one reason or another.
It doesn't really seem constitutional.
Well, that's why it's not allowed anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
they tried that in Vegas, and I believe one of the hotels in Vegas said you can't do this anymore. How many men were actually doing your job back in the beginning?
None. I was flying about 10, maybe 12 years before the first guys came in.
Mhm.
And boy, that was great. I like working with the male flight attendants. They really like their job, for the majority of them. And, of course, they're not like us mommies that have to go home and do all these other duties. So they were always well-rested, et cetera.
Finishing things up with Sue Boyce, like we said, longtime flight attendant. 29 years she worked the job. It is the I
Glorious
Want to Know
Glorious
segment.
years.
Yes,
Glorious years.
That is
Sue-
correct.
Sue, any near mishaps yourself? Any moments where you had?
No, the only mishap I had was totaling my car on the way to the airport.
And they do say it's more dangerous to be on the road than it is
Most
to be in the air.
definitely. It's the safest way to go anywhere.
And what about those
Very
double-decker
fortunate in that
planes?
regard.
Well, what about what?
Those double-decker planes, they kind of had the spiral staircases.
Yeah, I
and
used to work that. As a matter of fact, that was my favorite place to work, was upstairs. That was a 747.
it was like a lounge of some sort, wasn't it?
Right, and it had a elevator, and you used to have like a party of 6 to book it.
Mhm.
But that was always fun because you knew these people by the time you got to the West Coast. And they'd always bring you gifts and stuff like that. It was like your personal flight attendant. That was fun to do. A lot of girls didn't like doing that, but I enjoyed that.
Now, I would imagine, before we let you go, like we said, very fortunate, nothing really happened to you, no close calls, but I would
Absolutely.
imagine you personally identify with those flight attendants, the unfortunate ones on September 11th.
Well, you know what? You identify with anything that happens in the air because it's such a different kind of job. And yes, September 11th changed us all, and it definitely shook me up. But I don't think we'll see anything like that. I think the air is pretty safe right now. I hope, anyway.
You think pilots should have guns or be armed or anything?
Most of them are military trained. I don't know why not. But you know what? I don't think a pilot's going to need it because I think the cabin, the passengers are going to take care of anything that happens.
I agree with you on that.
And that
front.
was never that way before.
Yeah, in other words, it's none of my business. I'm staying out of this. Now people made it their business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those were the heroes.
Hey, did you ever have to punch anybody, hit anybody, kind of, getting a little...
No, but I've been punched.
You have?
Wow.
Yeah. 3 times. Now they can't get away with that.
Why'd they punch you?
One guy was stealing liquor out of a coat closet
And he punched you?
going into Vegas. He was about the size of Jiminy Cricket. I could have decked him in one swift punch, but of course I'm not trained to do that.
Right.
But I confronted him with it, and he came out and punched me. It was real hard. I was raised with an older brother. I wanted to turn around him and just knock him dead, but I didn't.
Yeah, bouncing them up and down the aisles might have been fun.
Yeah. Well, then he claimed he didn't do it, and the passenger service agents came on the plane in Vegas, and he was claiming to them that he didn't do it. And with that, he looked at another girl and threw her across the table. There was a little table.
Well, he
up in
obviously
the
had problems, this man.
Yeah.
All right.
I think he was arrested.
Yeah, it sounds like the Old West.
But, the majority of it was just fun. You never
Right.
worked with the same people. You had different crews, different passengers.
Now, are you married now?
Yeah.
Before you were married, did you have a man in every city, or at least one in every other city? Or,
No, not at all. No.
She told you she's a professional.
All right.
How dare you?
And I'm very happily married to the same
Well, it was
man.
glorious years and happily married.
That's
We know.
right.
We know the Sue Boy story.
Call me later and I'll tell you all the truth.
Excellent.
Well, we appreciate
I'm
it.
joking. Well, thanks. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sue.
And I'd be crazy if I didn't say bye-bye.
Yeah, well, real quick, it's just very good. It's just a shame that we never really got to the questions about how the hell planes really fly. I don't know if you know this, but I'm still amazed. Every
Of
time I
course
get on,
I do. I know everything about how they fly.
thrust and wings and stuff.
And a prayer.
Yeah, very good. All right,
Nice
Sue.
talking to you guys. I enjoy your show.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
Sue.
Keep
We
it up.
appreciate
Have a
it.
good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming on. Sue Boyce, 29 years she was a flight attendant. It's the I Want to Know segment. every Wednesday.
You leave people
What's it
alone
going to
in
be
the
next
bathroom.
week? Who knows? Punch 3 times.